And I was just wondering, what was your main motivation for reporting the Watergate scandal?
That it was hidden. The motive is, in my business, you try to dig and find out what happened. Let me tell you about the day of the Watergate burglary, which was June 17, 1972. So that's, 41 years ago, right now, almost to the day. And I was, 28 at the time, just worked at the Post for 9 months and was covering the night police beat. And I wasn't scheduled to work that day. And the editors met because they had this odd burglary, and they said, who would be dumb enough to come to work on a beautiful Saturday? And everyone said, Woodward. And so I got called in and sent to the court where they arraigned the 5 Watergate burglars. Now, the 5 Watergate burglars were wearing business suits, and I'd been covering the night police beat, and I never saw anyone who was a burglar who wore a business suit. Made no sense. And in the courtroom, the judge said to the lead burglar, James McCord, where do you work? Where did you work? And McCord says, and the judge said, speak up. And McCord kind of mumbles again. The judge says, speak up, I want to hear you. And McCord says, CIA. And it's in my notes, and you know what I said? To no one in particular, holy shit. Reality. And the motive is the head of security at the CIA, it turned out he was the head of security at the Nixon Re-Election Committee, is arrested in the other party's headquarters. Clearly this is not something that the militant campfire girls had done. It was something that it was kind of obvious that there's a big story of some form here. And the first story we wrote after the burglary, which was written by about 8 people, including Carl and myself, said the reason for the burglary at the Democratic headquarters, the motive behind it, and who, if anyone, sponsored and paid for this is unknown. And the next 26 months essentially was an effort to answer those questions. And so, you know, it was kind of obvious. And when you live and work in an environment like the Washington Post, where everyone's encouraged, keep going, keep working on the story. Yeah, work at night, go talk to people. Let's unravel this. So it was a, you know, very exciting time, and the motives were just not partisan at all. I voted for Nixon in 1968, believe it or not. And so it was just one of those, you know, it was a job, and we're protected by the institution. Over here.
My question for you is, in the movie All the President's Men, they portray your meetings with Deep Throat in a very Hollywood-esque version of a sketchy parking garage. They make it very important. How was that like? What was that like? And do you ever talk with him today about the so-called secrets of Washington?
Okay, first of all, it's very accurately portrayed. That's exactly what it was like. To me, it was kind of unbelievable. But this Deep Throat was Mark Feld, who was #2 in the FBI, somebody I'd met when I'd done courier duty from the Pentagon to the White House when I was in the Navy. And he was not a volunteer, he's somebody I pushed. And he understood the depth of all of this. And he died, I think, 2 years ago, so I don't know what he was thinking or would think now. But in 2005, his identity was not known, and I'd agreed to keep it until he passed away, and he outed himself and wrote an article with his lawyer for the magazine Vanity Fair. And Carl and I were horrified, worried that because he was almost 90 at this point, that somebody was taking advantage of him. It turned out they really weren't, and it was good that it came out, and he wrote a book about what he did and you know, why he was deep throat. And it's mixed motives like most human nature, but he was able to guide us and help us in an important way, but not, I think we still would have done a lot of Watergate stories without his assistance. But his assistance, because his message to me always was, no, don't think of this just as the Watergate operation. There, all these other operations turned out like the team broke into Daniel Ellsberg's psychiatrist's office. There were all kinds of money questions. There were 50 people hired to go around and spy on and sabotage the other Democratic candidates. So it's an endless stream of illegal activity. He understood that, and that was in our coverage because of his guidance.
I was wondering if you lament the decline of print media amid the rise and proliferation of online and internet media.
Well, I'm not sure. There clearly is a decline. Probably in 5, 10, 20 years, there won't be newspapers because it can be much more information. Anything can be delivered online or through computers. The thing I worry about is the organizations don't have the money to finance this kind of in-depth investigative work. And if we don't do it, believe me, the government is much better than ever in spinning things, controlling the message. And if the government gets better funded, I mean, there are people in the White House who have important jobs in the West Wing, and all of their responsibility is to get their message out and the president's interpretation of actions and events. And they have more money, more power, and you have a media that has less money and less power and is more fractured. So it's troubling.
As a student highly considering journalism as a profession, what are a few steps to take on finding a great story to report on?
What?
As a student highly considering journalism as a profession, what are a few steps to take on finding a great story to report on?
Get a job in journalism, and then I always tell people that and I think this applies to most jobs and professions, but it particularly applies to journalism. If you're supposed to work 8 hours, work 2 hours extra, so 25% more, and I think your effectiveness to what you were doing and to the group or institution you're working for will be 50% higher. Work instead of 8 hours, 12 hours, and I think you can really double your impact on the institution because people are running by things. They're not doing the coming back, expanding their interviews, expanding their sources. I remember one of the Bush books I was working on, there was a general who would not talk to me. And I left emails, phone calls, used intermediaries, radio, silence. And he just nothing. And so I found out where he lived in the Washington area. Now, what's the best time to go visit a 4-star general without an appointment?
During dinner.
Pardon?
During dinner.
During dinner?
Yeah.
Okay, why?
I don't know where it
Then he'd think he'd have to give me dinner. And
yeah, you get free food.
he doesn't want to talk. You don't want to interrupt his dinner. Pardon? Sunday, no. That's their own time. Okay, I'm telling you, my calculation, you should come about 8:15 on a Tuesday night, because they will have eaten. If they're home, there's those extra hours before they go to bed. So I knocked on his door it was 8:17, I remember, on a Tuesday night, and he opened the door and looked at me and said, I'm going to quote again, said, "Are you still doing this shit?" And I just stood there and didn't say anything. And it was it's again this message, I take you seriously. I want, you're going to figure in this story. I want to get your point of view. I want to get it right. And he looked at me and like this, come on in. And I came in, stayed about 3 hours. He answered almost all of the questions. Now what's interesting here, somebody went from a definite no, spent about 0.2 seconds in the maybe range, to a yes. Why? Because somebody showed up and asked. So that's what you have to do in journalism. You have to show up. The person you've gone to see doesn't welcome you, be respectful, leave, and then come the next night.